Hello, and welcome back to the Misty Morrison Podcast. I'm your host, Misty Morrison, and this is episode 24 of Petty Please. Here on the Misty Morrison Podcast, we love to judge, we love to give advice, we love all the petty drama. But before we get into our stories for the day, just our regular housekeeping, whether you are new or returning. I'm going to say this every single time. Please remember to engage with the content. Everything helps the channel grow. No matter what platform you are enjoying on, whether you are listening or watching, rate, review, subscribe, comment, like, share, all the things. All right, into our pettiness for today. Story number 1 is coming to us from r/entitled people. My aunt guilt-tripped my family and I for not coming to an event she planned just 2 days before. I live in the U.S., but my mother is Mexican-American. My father and his older brother and sister immigrated from El Salvador when they were teenagers. Even though my aunt is not Mexican, she has adopted celebration of cutting la rosca on January 6th, Three Kings Day. For those of you that aren't Mexican, what this event is basically to celebrate the birth of Jesus. You have this large round bread, sweet bread, and you have to cut a single slice. It's kind of like a game, because within this bread there are 6 little miniature figurines of the baby Jesus. And if you get a slice that has a baby Jesus in it, that means that you have to have a party. This is all to say that my aunt is not Mexican, and ultimately she has no reason to celebrate this day. But she just texted us on January 4 if we can meet on January 6. It's a Monday, right after work. And my uncle, my dad's older brother, texted that he and the kids were currently camping and wouldn't be back until the day after. My mom then texts back in the group chat saying that she had a presentation out of town and would also be gone. My aunt texted saying, "Oh, poor mommy," referring to her mother, my grandmother, like she was making all of us feel bad by saying that her mom would be hurt. It's very clear that she's using my grandmother to kind of deflect from her own pain. Instead of saying, "This makes me sad," she says, "This will make my mom, my grandma, sad." I think I may have left out the sub. This one is coming to us from r/entitled people. And I don't really think she's being entitled. Kind of strange. Like, really? If you're upset about it, don't put it off on someone else. Like, the mom, your grandma, probably doesn't care that much. And like to plan something on the 4th for 2 days later, especially with it being a Monday, chances were slim. I wouldn't have ever had my hopes up for that. So yeah, I don't think it's entitled. I just think it's weird. All right. Story number 2 is coming to us from r/entitled people. Karen stole the wrong seat. My son and I are flying out. I booked the aisle and window in case the flight wasn't full. If it was full, we would let the middle person choose aisle or window. We get to our row and there is someone in the window. We check our seats. She looks away pretending she doesn't see or hear us. It's fine for us since we were going to take the middle seat anyways. Then this guy comes and says he has the middle seat in our row. I explained we have the aisle and window, but this woman sat down first. Turns out she had the middle seat on the other side. Now she is squished between 2 large dudes. She didn't even steal the correct side. I mean, if you're gonna do it right. Oh, well. Let's see. Story number 3 is coming to us from r/entitled people, and then we'll move on to a different sub. Entitled aunt wants to keep all the jewelry. A few weeks ago, my wife's grandmother passed away. She had moved from Florida to the same state as my wife and her parents after her husband passed 2 years ago. During these past 2 years, my wife, myself, her parents, and brother have been the ones taking care of her. Some of her kids would come visit from time to time, but it was mostly us. One of my wife's aunts, we'll call her H, never came to visit. She'd only occasionally call and speak to my wife's grandma, usually to just complain. Anyway, the funeral took place back in Florida since she was going to be buried next to her husband. At the open casket, there were several pieces of jewelry on her, specifically some rings. After they got her ready to move to the cemetery, they removed the jewelry she wasn't going to be buried in. This included 4 rings. Well, my wife's mom gave them to H and told her to pick 2 to keep. H immediately pocketed all 4. When she was confronted, she made a big huffy show about giving them back, grumbling about how she should get all of them. Also, before this, one of my wife's other aunts spoke at the funeral. During her speech, she thanked my wife, her parents, brother, myself, and the brother's girlfriend for being there for her in person these last 2 years. H was furious that she didn't get thanked, as if she ever bothered to come visit. I'm really curious yes, H is very entitled, but I'm really curious as to why your wife offered her 2 of the 4 rings. Was there a will that dictated that H would get something? Because if not, I wouldn't have offered her anything, let alone let her touch more than she was getting. If there wasn't a requirement to do so, because she certainly didn't earn it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and see if OP follows up at all. This is only from 6 hours ago. Let's see, there's 43 comments, so I'll scroll for a second. It's not look. Oh, OP did reply. Okay, OP has been a little active. They replied to a few things. Okay. Tried to see if there's like anything about. Oh, well, okay. So somebody commented and asked, why was she allowed anything? And OP replied, not my decision to make. Still unclear if there was a will. Someone else commented, good reason to make a will. OP replied, thankfully, there is one for anything major. These weren't particularly valuable or even super sentimental pieces of jewelry, which I guess paints H in an even worse light. Okay, so from that, it seems like the wife was just being nice, trying to offer the aunt, the deceased person's sister, something to remember her by. She was just being nice. Everything else is willed to whoever was supposed to get it. But knowing that they're not even sentimental or valuable, it really does make H sound even worse. Like, you just want things regardless of the meaning. And somebody commented, you were extremely generous to let her keep 2. I wouldn't have. OP said, wasn't my decision to make. They replied, sorry, I meant the collective, you, your wife, and her family. Sorry for being unclear. OP said, no worries. Yeah, so OP never says anything beyond saying that there is a will for anything major. So these pieces weren't willed to anyone. It seems like wife was just being nice. Which, I mean, good for you for not holding grudges or being petty, but also, I wouldn't have. Like, to not even care enough about someone to go visit them in their final years and then still expect something, that's low. That's low. That is the worst to me. Story number 4 is coming to us from r/malicious compliance. Okay then, I won't help. I'm sure lots of people have stories like this, and here's mine. I'm retired now after a long IT career. Like most such folks, I worked as a software developer for part of this time earlier in my career. For a time, I worked for an engineering firm that produced a lot of architectural drawings and blueprints as part of the design process. I was the dev lead and primary designer for a new system to track drawings as they moved through the development and review process. To get to the point, the new system was launched to mostly good success and heavy usage. As with all new systems, people had a learning curve. As it was not a huge company, most of the user community knew me. We also had a help desk, whose job theoretically included providing user support for this new tracking system. However, the company had ignored my repeated requests to let them spend meaningful time with me to learn the system well. The user community quickly realized the help desk was useless, so they would call me directly. I was fine with this. I always found helping the user community my favorite part of my job. Word came down to me that I was to direct all such calls to the help desk. Frankly, I ignored this at first, but after a while it was made clear I could not. So I complied. That did not go well for the users. They basically got no help. Took only about 3 days for word to come back that I could help people again, and time was set aside for me to properly train the help desk folks. And that's really just shows when management is so high up above everything else that they don't even see the value of some of those people down below, and especially the value of those relationships. Like, they know the IT person, they trust them, they know that they're going to get help from them, so they're willing to reach out. And especially knowing that the alternative really couldn't help you. Like where I work, we have a small IT team. There's a few people in it, but there's one particular person that I know is easy to get a hold of, responsive to emails and phone calls, and always very willing to help, where not everyone in that department is willing to help. So I always choose to go to that person as long as I have the option. Let people get the help that they need from the people that they know will help them. Story number 5, I think, is coming to us from r/malicious compliance. Manager told us we had to do the dress code to the letter. So I did. To the letter. I used to work at a company that had a business casual dress code. Vaguest thing in the world. It was always sort of ambiguous. People wore polo shirts, button-down shirts, blouses, slacks, whatever. No one cared as long as you looked tidy. That's kind of I think that's kind of, at least in the US, the general consensus on what business casual means. Is just look professional, presentable, tidy, but also all of those things are very subjective. For example, in business casual, you will have people wearing dress pants and a blouse with a blazer. And then you will also have people, and I saw this recently, you will also have people wearing leopard print leggings and a plain colored tunic top. And someone will call that business casual. And I'm like, that doesn't look professional. But there you have, business casual is very vague. Back to the story. Then we got a new manager. In his first week, he sends out an all-staff email. From now on, the dress code is to be followed verbatim as written in the handbook. No exceptions. All right, I dug out the dusty employee handbook and really read the dress code. It hadn't been updated since the late 90s. It was very specific. When was this written? Oh, it doesn't say how long ago. It was posted 7 days ago, but it doesn't say how old this story is. Okay. It hadn't been updated since the late 90s. It was very specific. Men, dress shirt, tie, slacks, and jacket. I would call that business formal, actually. Women, knee-length skirt, knee-length. I can see pencil skirts galore. Knee-length skirt, nylons. Blouse and closed-toe shoes. Oh, it keeps going downhill. No polos, no cardigans, no khakis. That part's fine with me. Okay, pause the story again. I hate khakis. That color does not look good on me. I don't like to wear them. I don't wear them. Depending on the cardigan, I wear some cardigans to work, business casual. Just depends. Some are kind of slouchy or more casual looking than others to me. I do wear polos. I prefer blouses really, but I will wear polos with my jeans for our casual Fridays. Knee-length skirt I feel like would look so awkward on me, and it's hard to style with boots. Nylons. No. Just hard pass. I want no part of it. If I had to, I would, but also I know flight attendants still wear nylons, but just, I'd rather not. Blouse, good. Closed-toed shoes. That's fine. I love wearing boots. I would definitely style like a skirt with boots, but in the summertime. And there are certain settings, kitchens, healthcare settings, certain things where you have to wear closed-toe shoes for safety. But me, I work in an office setting. As long as I'm not going to other settings, I can wear open-toed shoes. And in the summertime, my feet sweat. I want to wear open shoes. That's my only complaint about closed-toe shoes, is I have hot feet in the summertime. Back to the story. The next Monday, I showed up in a suit and tie. I hardly ever wear jackets to work, so everyone right away noticed. And then other individuals started reading the handbook too, because after all, the boss read it precisely as written. The office was a time capsule by Wednesday. A coworker was wearing shoulder pads and nylons in the August heat. Another guy pulled out his wedding gear. Someone even showed up at work with suspenders because the handbook allows it. Half of the staff sweated buckets because we weren't allowed to take our jackets off our bodies when sitting at our desks. That is insanity. HR was not happy. So they got a few complaints of hostile working conditions due to the impossible dress code, or due to the imposed dress code. 1 week later, we got a new message. Use common sense in following the dress code. Business casual, as done before, is fine. He ate those words. Polos and khakis were once again in style, and our manager never brought up the handbook again. You cannot reference the handbook if you don't know what it says. And also, I want to know how big this company is that the handbook wasn't more recently updated, because where I work, the handbook is updated every single year, reviewed by a lawyer. They take their handbook very seriously. It is the company Bible. Use common sense in following the dress code. And I understand that common sense isn't that common, and business casual can be very flexible. It is very much up for interpretation. But don't say follow the dress code to a T when you don't even know what the dress code is. That's hilarious. The backtracking for me. Okay. That was a good one. I'm glad we transitioned. Okay, story number 6. I don't want to go back and count. I want to trust that I got it right today. Story number 6 is coming to us from r/malicious compliance. You know that one line manager you just end up hating? I was a reasonably young professional several decades back in my field, and I had this absolutely awful line manager who I'll call Dave, for no other reason than that is his name. I feel the need to qualify how bad he was, so here goes. He was appointed, though he had never worked in the field of the team he was supposedly leading. He wasn't and had never been an engineer. One contractor complained to his line manager he was a bully to the junior staff, and one single example of this was a formal comment he made on my document, which the regulator said was incorrect, and he then criticized me for not listening to what he told me. The word incompetent will never fully encompass my experience of his leadership. He may well have done well in his field, physics, but this story would never have come to light up your world had he done that. It said it's written had her done that. So I had to figure out what the role was. Okay. But what you're here for is a story of my revenge, and this I managed twice. The first was brilliant. He set up a regular meeting and wanted me to be the secretary. It was a brainchild of his of such brilliance, I can't even remember what the hours were spent wasting our time was supposed to achieve. It was just a talking shop for him to feel more important, as far as I can remember. The first set of minutes I wrote out, having written out the discussion almost word for word, included actions which were as agreed with attendees in the meeting. But as I'm sure you've guessed, this was never going to be good enough for Dave. We should have more inferred actions from our meeting. Look here, there's an inferred action on X person to do Y, see? So I duly went along with this and got into full swing of inventing actions out of thin air, never agreed with the attendees and only vaguely related to the discussion at hand. It all seemed to go down rather well the first time, and the second. By the third meeting, I'd come up with my plan, and it wasn't commented on once. From that meeting on, only Dave was ever assigned inferred actions. Of course, the genius of this plan was that he was too proud of his talking shop and being important as the chair of this amazing meeting that he couldn't push back or complain to me about him being given the actions. He taught me about inferred actions, told me we needed more, and to tell me to stop giving him them would only be to U-turn like a British Prime Minister. And he was, of course, far too proud to do that. This went on week to week for a couple of months until we had one meeting where he was the only person who had any actions. And of course, he hadn't in an entire month done a single action. We still held the next meeting, and he came to me after having talked through it. Wasted all our time and commented how good a meeting it was because we'd got away with not doing any actions. I'm not sure if my face gave it away, but that was, to my memory, the final meeting we ever had. It may well have been shortly after that I went to raise the grievance against him for bullying, which is another story. But about a year later, I wrangled the position of project manager of his pet project. This was my next malicious compliance of revenge. I had several conversations, as I'll detail below, ad infinitum. Dave, I'm going to set up a new project costing lots of money. Me. The project doesn't currently have the money for you to do that. I'm not stopping you setting it up, but we'll have to go through project change control to agree the funds from the program. Write down what you're doing, write down what you want to do, and we'll raise the change note and go to the project change board to agree the funds. Dave, you can't stop me setting this up. Me. I'm not stopping you. I'm trying to help you. We just need to go through the company process. Write down what you're currently spending your time doing. Write down what you want to do, and we'll take it to the project change board. Dave, you're just trying to stop me from doing this. He left on very short notice before the intended start date of his project to work at our regulator. The regulator went down in my estimations, and the group lead who had hired him for that role, despite being senior, was never high in my expectations in the first place. That was kind of a hard one to read. I don't know if it was, there were a few typos. But I feel like this wasn't necessarily American English. Like, there's a little bit of it that was hard for me to follow. But yeah, Dave sounds really annoying. Yeah, it sounds like Dave is working harder, not smarter. Oh, I definitely lost my place now. I think I'm on 7. I'm gonna count and see. I was right. Okay, story number 7 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. I purposefully walked into a woman who wouldn't let me off the elevator. Staying in a hotel for a week for a work thing. There's this woman who I encountered when attempting to get out of the elevator. She was either with her boyfriend or her husband. Elevator doors open, she's right there, and she just zooms in. I have to jump back to avoid being mowed over. Her partner waits for me to exit. Well, the next day, I'm leaving around the same time. Elevator doors open, and there she is. Without thinking, I'm like, not today. And with the same energy, I power walk out, shoulder checking her. I'm shorter than her, so it's more like shoulder chest check. But she stumbles and gives me a dirty look. I just smile and continue on. I saw her one more time in the lobby and just smiled at her in the face of her glare. Elevator etiquette. I grew up in an apartment building, with a very tall, like, skyscraper, and there were elevators. You had to take the elevator. The person who, it's kind of like road traffic, the person who is already on the elevator has the right of way. First off, when you get in the elevator, if it's empty, you go to the back of the elevator. You make space for other people. You press your button, you go to the back. If you are getting ready to get off, you stand closer to the door. But common elevator etiquette, if you are the one on, you have the right of way to get off first. If not, you step back to let people in. If you are waiting to board the elevator, you clear the doors, you wait for the doors to open, you pause, see if anyone is coming out. If they're not, then you get on. I want to say it's common sense, but apparently it's not. But it is polite. Story number 8, our last story for the day, is coming to us from r/Petty Revenge. Loud music at 2 a.m. I found the perfect way to shut her up. When I was in college, I had this neighbor in the dorms named Sarah. Sarah wasn't evil, just loud. Every night she'd blast music at 1 or 2 a.m., usually when I had an early class. No matter how many times people asked her to turn it down, she'd laugh it off and say, "Relax, it's college." One night before a big exam, I was desperate for sleep. I knocked on her door around midnight and asked politely if she could lower the volume just a little. She smirked, said, "Sure," and then cranked it even louder. I knew it. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, absolutely fuming. The next morning, after my exam, I decided I wasn't going to let it slide. Sarah was notorious for sleeping in late, usually till noon, and she hated mornings more than anything. So for the next week, I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m. sharp, right when the hall was dead quiet, and placed my Bluetooth speaker against the thin wall we shared. I blasted the cheesiest pop songs I could find. Think bubblegum boy bands from the early 2000s. The first day, she stumbled out of her room groggy and furious. By day 3, she started begging me to stop. I just smiled and said, "Relax, it's college." Funny enough, after that week, her late-night concerts mysteriously stopped. She never admitted defeat, but the silence was golden. That story was also golden. You fought noise with noise, and I love it. Because everyone tolerated her for so long. You asked one time. You said, "This one time, it's so important that I get my sleep. Please stop." And she told you she would, and then turned around and did the exact opposite because she's like, "It's just college. You can't tell me what to do." And then you did. Then you proved her wrong. Yeah. Payback sucks. All right, that is 8 stories for this week's episode of Petty Please, and that is us done for the day. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Misty Morrison Podcast, and I will see you next time. Bye.